In this video, we're going to cover application domains. An application domain is a way to separate your jobs into logical areas, if you will, so that you can kind of segregate different things. So if I bring up PowerPoint here, this is a good example of how we use application domains in BlueSky Integration Studio. So you can set up an area or an application domain where you can, for different projects. So for instance, your finance project, and you can have all of your jobs and ETL jobs in there. And then you can have a completely different application domain for your point of sale project, or a completely different application domain for an ERP migration. So you can set up different physical areas within the BlueSky Integration Studio server to keep your jobs separate from each other. Another way that we commonly use application domains is we might have one BlueSky Integration Studio and we set up areas for development, QA, and production. So then I can have one BlueSky Integration Studio server with all three of my environments on it for dev, QA, and production. And then I can use the promotion wizard within BlueSky Integration Studio to promote my jobs from one area to the other. So how this looks in BlueSky Integration Studio is when you go into the job control here, by default, out of the box, when you install BlueSky Integration Studio, you get an application domain called shared domain. So this is sort of the catch-all, common area that gets installed when you first install BlueSky Integration Studio. And this is pretty much where we've been working throughout most of these videos. But if I click on this down arrow here, I can switch to a different application domain. So for instance, I have created one called My Sandbox. And I just threw a couple sample jobs out here real quick. If I want to build my dim calendar, my dim item, and my dim retailer, I just threw a couple jobs out here. But as you can see, I don't see any of those other jobs in the shared domain. They're completely separate in a completely different application domain. And then if I switch back to shared domain, then I see those jobs. So an application domain can also be set up so that only particular users can get to or see certain application domains, and that would be set up in the administration of the users and roles. So let's go ahead and create a new application domain. It's under the Systems tab, and then you go into Administration, and you get these kind of menu items here, and the first one in the list here is the application domains. And it's really simple to set them up. So you just click on this, and you'll see I have two application domains out there. I can specify the path where I want that application domain to be. And if I want a new one, I can just say Add. And I'll just call this My Sample App Domain. And I'll just stick it in the default directory and say Apply. And now my application domain is created. And now if I go out to Job Control, I actually see it in the drop-down list here. Okay, and if I go to it, you'll notice I have no jobs in there yet. Okay, so now I have three application domains. I have Shared Domain, I have My Sandbox, and I have My Sample App Domain. So it's just an area, where you can, kind of consolidate your jobs and encapsulate them in a logical grouping. Okay, and that's what it means up here when we're talking about the domain parameters. When I set up parameters at the domain level, I'm setting them up at the application domain level here. And then if I go to My Sandbox here, I have no parameters. But then if I go back to Shared Domain, then I have those parameters. So these parameters are specific to all the jobs within a particular application domain. And then from a security standpoint, you can set up the users to only have access to particular application domains. So for instance, if I go back to the administrator page and I go under Users and Roles, I can create a new user. Let's say I'll call him a developer. And then I can come under here, under roles, and I can say, you know what, I don't want him to have access to shared domain or my sample app domain. I only want him to have access to my sandbox. I can then just come over here and say he's allowed to design, and he's allowed to have job control within this particular app domain. But if I go back to shared domain, for instance, that user is not in this list, so he's not allowed to access those areas. So I can set up security and roles based on who the developer is and what I want him to be able to see within the BlueSky Integration Studio system. Okay, so that is how you set up application domains in BlueSky Integration Studio. Again, super handy for setting up dev, QA, and production environments. Also setting up different areas, to kind of encapsulate jobs, or if you just want to create a quick sandbox to throw some jobs into and test some things, you can always then just go back and remove that application domain after you're done. So, great feature within the BlueSky Integration Studio. So, okay, thank you very much.